I've been keen to plant this paddock into natives since I fell over a bluff and broke my tibia here some years ago. So it was very satisfying to see the sun set on cattle in Broken Leg Gully for the last time, just before the planters arrived. Brett Thompson and his crew from New Zealand Native Flora planted 20,000 trees on 10 hectares in 11 days in June 2019. After many decades of grazing cattle, most of the topsoil on these steep hillsides has moved downhill, where it collects in the gully bottoms before being carried away by the streams. We are planting all of the steep land on our farm into native forest, to be managed as a continuous cover forestry resource. Our plantings are not a rotation destined for clear felling. The idea is to establish a permanent forest and then manage it using continuous cover forestry techniques. So if we want tracks through the forest for maintenance and enjoyment, we need to put them in first and then plant around them. Which is exactly what we did in 2020 before planting another 20,000 trees on another 10 hectares. Once the canopy closes on this planted native forest, it will begin to offer a full suite of ecosystem services in this upper catchment, and one day offer a sustainable supply of high-quality native timber. There are already small-scale continuous cover forestry operations underway in New Zealand. Paul Quinlan and the Northland Tōtara Working Group are actively managing regenerating tōtara stands to demonstrate that they can be sustainably harvested under a continuous cover forestry regime.
This is a good example of taking a poorer one and leaving a better one right here. Well, it's the same tree really.
Further south, in Canterbury, Dr. John Wardle manages regenerating black beech, with selective harvesting taking place every 2 years.
I'd have probably taken out about 3/4 or more.
Oh right,
Or
okay.
At least 3/4.
Yeah.
Well, you can see the slash on the ground,
Yeah.
which is pretty thick.
Yeah.
The roots can't go very far because of competition from the neighbours.
Yeah, yeah.
So you're getting a tall tree here, with, which is very vulnerable to wind, with no root to hold it.
Yeah.
Here your root is developing, so it can hold it.
Yeah, yeah.
So this will say you're tweaking the natural process to give you what you want, and what you want is stability of the stand.
Removing the worst trees from a regenerating stand means that the remaining straight trees will grow faster. Whereas planting a forest from scratch gives us the opportunity to maximise the potential of every timber tree. But before we can harvest anything, I need to plant a lot of native forest and manage it for 60 to 80 years. And obviously, it's not our easy, productive country that we're planting. It's the steep, isolated and challenging bits of land. So there is often a lot of work to do to prepare for a successful planting. I've used gorse as a nurse crop in the past, but I found it too vigorous and it took too much maintenance to prevent it from overtopping the trees. Nowadays, I prefer to get rid of the gorse and plant native shrubs as a nurse crop. Ideally, we would let the cut gorse rot down for a couple of years while we continue to graze the paddock and spray regrowth from the gorse stumps. But in 2019, we had plants booked at the nursery and a crew ready to start planting. Sometimes, controlled burning is the best available option for clearing a site. But because in this instance we didn't have time to spray the regrowth a couple of times, we have to be extra cautious and use a shield when spraying gorse regrowth to make sure there's no spray getting onto the trees we planted. We've planted 30 hectares of native trees so far and have about 5 hectares still to go. When that's finished, all 7 streams leaving our farm will have complete forest cover. We'll continue to graze any area that we can drive a vehicle over. Anything that's too steep for that will have been planted into forest. We're setting up as many different planting scenarios as we can think of and using permanent sample plots to gather data for the National Growth Database, which is managed by Tane's Tree Trust. For more information on managing native trees for timber, contact Tane's Tree Trust.